There is a big chance you have at least heard about the replay mod. A very popular mod for Minecraft that allows you to make incredible cinematic shots like the ones you're looking at right now. The thing is though, the shots you're looking at right now are not made with the replay mod. Instead, they are made with a brand new mod called Flashback. It is made by the same developer as Axiom, another very popular mod you might have heard about before. And even though Flashback is still in early development and has just been out for about a week, it is already very promising. So the Flashback mod is available on Modrinf. When we go over to versions, you will see that it's currently only available for 1.21 and 1.21.1. Now, according to Mockswamp's video, who worked together with the creator of Flashback to release a video on the same day the Flashback mod released, this is on purpose. The Flashback mod will always only be available for the latest version of the game. This does make it less compatible than the replay mod, but by only having to maintain one version, the developer can focus a lot more on creating more cool features that might not work well with older versions of the game. Now, after the mod is installed, if you've ever used the replay mod, you will start seeing some familiar things already. So over here on the main menu, we got the replay button. And when we click on there, we can see all of our currently available replays. Like you can see, we don't have that many. So let's create one. After entering a world, when we click on escape, you will see a big start recording button at the bottom of your menu. So let's click. There we go. The recording has started. And now we can just jump around. We can break some blocks. We can touch some grass. And we can even friend a cat. How are you doing today? Now, after you're done recording, we can simply click on escape again. And now you got the option to finish the recording, pause it, or just cancel it altogether. Now let's click on finish. We can give it a little name, for example, test recording, and then we can just save the replay. When we now go back to the main menu again and we click on the replay button, you can see that the recording we just made is now here. And upon opening the recording, this is what you will see. Now, right away, you might notice something. There is a little bug going on, and I've not been able to resolve it so far. Just to be clear, I tried out every single version of Flashback mod that's currently available, and I even tried changing my screen resolution, but nothing seems to be working. For some reason, the recording is behind the timeline. And that on its own is not a very big problem, but as a result, we now have two massive black bars here at the top and on the right side that don't have to be there. Now the timeline here and the visuals menu, we can actually move them. So we can move it to wherever we want. And if I actually want to lock it at the bottom, this is what it will do for some reason. And when I lock it to the bottom but make it a bit smaller, it will still do the same thing. Now I also tried playing around with the visuals menu a bit, but that also doesn't seem to fix anything. And actually the best solution I found is putting the timeline at the top and then expanding the visuals menu a bit to the left. Now it aligns up. Is this what you want? Probably not. The timeline is kind of supposed to be below the video, but I'm sure this bug will be fixed in a few updates, and then you don't have to worry about this anymore. Here we got the actual recording. So when I click on the recording, you can see I can move around in this recording as a free cam. I can see my own character, I can see all the trees, the entire terrain, and when I click on the play button on the timeline, you can see all the mobs spawn in, and the recording will actually start playing. So you can see my character move around live. You can see all the mobs roam around, do their own thing. It will just be an exact recording of what I just did. But because I'm able to move around as a free cam, we can of course use this to make some amazing shots. Now, if you've used a video editing software before, the timeline might feel very familiar to you. And it kind of is. It works in the same way. But even if you've not used it, it is very easy to use. Let's first have a little look at the visuals though, because you can change a lot of cool stuff here. Over here, you can enable or disable the chat, boss bar, title text, scoreboard, and action bar. So if you want any of these things to show in your recording, you can just simply enable them. Then beneath that, we got some world settings. So there's render blocks, render entities, render players, render particles, sky, and name tags. Now render blocks, if you disable that, then this is what your world will look like. Can that be handy in some circumstances? Probably. It's good that the option is here. Now, if you don't want entities to be visible, then we can just disable them. There we go. The horse and the cat both disappear. If I don't want myself to be visible, so a player character, I can also disable myself. In case you just want to make some beautiful cinematic shots, that might be something you want to do. Now, particles, we can also disable those. Then we got render sky. Now, currently nothing will change. Like you can see, it looks the same. Now, this is most likely because I'm currently using shaders. When I disable my shaders and uncheck the render skybox, you can see it will now appear green. Why green? Well, if something is green, you can easily replace it with something else. Green screen! And then at the bottom, we got render name tags. So if you want it to not be there, you can disable it. But we also got some overrides. So there is fog, FOV, override time, camera shake, and camera roll. Now, I would highly recommend experimenting with these yourself. But if we, for example, use override FOV, then we can change the FOV of the camera. Like you can see. Something around 40 is usually the best for making cinematic shots, as it looks the most flat. If we put the FOV very, very high, then it doesn't look that great cinematic wise. And override time is also quite an important one, so we can change the time. Even after everything has already been recorded, we can easily change up the time of day. So if we all of a sudden want this shot to take place at night, we can totally do that. It is like magic. It is super cool. Now at the bottom we got the rule of thirds, which if you know anything about films and movies, you know that this is really, really important and you can easily enable it. You keep in mind though that it only works well if the timeline is not overlapping your actual recording. You can see it doesn't really work that well because now the recording and the actual grids are not lining up. Further confirming that yes, this is still a bug, but I'm sure it will be fixed soon. And we also got a center guide, which is super useful for a lot of different circumstances. Then we got camera path, which is visible by default and you probably want it to be visible. I will show you what it exactly means later on. And then here at the bottom we got the aspect ratio. So by default it will just be the same aspect ratio as your recording. You can also change it up. For me it is 16:9 by default, but if you want to make a YouTube short, for example, you can totally change up the aspect ratio and then easily record a short this way. It's awesome. It's actually really cool. Okay, now it is time to make a beautiful cinematic shot. And we're gonna do this with the help of some keyframes. So here on the timeline we can of course go forward and back in time by moving the cursor. Now, if you want to make a cinematic shot of, for example, this Cherry Grove biome, what we have to do is we have to enter a starting and finishing position. So let's say I want this as my starting camera position. What we can then do is click on Add Element, and we're first gonna add a camera element. I will show you what the other ones do in a bit. But let's click on Camera, and then we're gonna click on plus to add the first keyframe. Now, what we can do is we can go forward in time a bit. So let's go forward to, for example, over here. And then I'm also gonna move my camera to another position. For example, over here. And now we can click on plus again to add another keyframe. Now, if you've used editing programs before, you already know what's about to happen. Now, because we have camera path enabled, we can actually fly around and you can see the path that the camera will take. So this is the starting position of the camera, and then it will go to that location. This one over here. Now, if we now put the cursor in front of the first keyframe and we click on play, we can actually see this camera movement happen. You will see it will go from the first to the second keyframe. Cinematic shot created. It's as easy as that. But like you could see in the element menu, there's a lot more here that you can do. So we can also set keyframes for example, the time of day. Let's say that at the same time the animation starts, so that's over here, I want the time of day to be night. And then at the end of the camera movement, I want the time of day to just be day. When we now play the timeline, you will see that the camera moves, but the time of day moves as well. Looking pretty solid. And we can also add a camera shake. So let's just click on camera shake. There we go. Let's click on plus. And let's set the frequency to maybe 2. Then the amplitude is gonna go to 1. Then I'm gonna add another one on the same time as the other keyframes, just like that. And now there should also be a little camera shake. Now, like you can see, the shake will become less and less the more time progresses. And that all has to do with the way we set these keyframes. So here at the start of the clip, I set the frequency to 2 and the amplitude to 1. But this this keyframe here has the frequency on 1 and the amplitude on 0, making the effect a lot less noticeable. If we would delete this keyframe and instead of lowering the frequency and amplitude, we make it higher, then you will see that the further the clip progresses, the shaking is gonna get worse. So yes, I don't know who wants this, but you can do this if you want. Now, let's just delete the camera shake and the time of day. Let's focus on the camera only at first. When we click on play before the first keyframe, you will see that the animation, essentially, starts out pretty slow. It becomes faster as we enter the middle between these two keyframes, and then when we near the last keyframe, you will see that it slowly becomes slower again. And you can completely change that with this mod as well. So when we select both keyframes and we then right-click, you can see that currently it is on smooth. But we can also set it to linear, easy in, easy out, easy in and out, and hold. Now, let's set it to linear, just so you can see the difference. You will see when I now start playing, the camera movement will not start and end smoothly. Instead, it will just abruptly start and it will abruptly end. So it looks a lot less cinematic. But for some shots that you want to make, you might not need the smoothness. So that is something that you can just change as well. Okay, but let's say I'm very happy with this camera movement. I love the shot. I want to turn this into an actual video that I can use in my video editing software. You want to go to export in the top left. After clicking, you will get to the export video menu. And here we can change some basic settings like the resolution, which for me is just my screen resolution. And if you changed up the aspect ratio I showed earlier, it should also have a different resolution here. Now, beneath the resolution, we can edit the start and end tick. Now, what does that mean? Well, currently it will render this entire timeline from start to finish. Not just the camera movement we've created. Everything here will be exported. But that is of course not something we want, because nothing interesting happens over here and nothing interesting happens after the last keyframe has ended. So we just want to render these keyframes. How do we do that? If you simply go and stand on the keyframe, we can click on the button I on your keyboard. Bam. Now this is gonna be the first rendered frame. So let's go to the second keyframe and let's click on O. And now only the part in between these keyframes has been highlighted, which means that is the only part it will actually render. If you've ever used an editing software, you're probably familiar with this already, but otherwise, now you know. So when we go to export again, you can see that the start and end tick has now changed. Then you can set the frame rate, which I would just keep at 60. Then you have to choose a video format. MP4 is recommended for most people. If you know what you're doing, you can also go for MKV, AVI, or MOV. But for most people, MP4 should be sufficient. Something that I would recommend ticking on is use max bitrate, because that way you will just get very nice quality. Now there is also an option here to record the audio. And that is really cool and something that, from my understanding, the replay mod doesn't have. If you want in-game audio to also be included, you can tick this box. Now, I don't have any interesting audio, so I'm just gonna leave it disabled, and then I'm gonna click on Start Export. Now, after I click on there, a Finder menu will open that allows me to choose a location and a name for the clip. So here we got coolshot.mp4. And when we now go back to Minecraft, you can see it's rendering. It has an estimated time left, time elapsed. You can cancel it if you want. And then after all the frames have been rendered, you're done. And here it is, coolshot.mp4. And when I open it up and now click on play, you can see, hey, that is the shot we just made. It looks crisp, it looks cool, and we can use it for whatever project. Anyhow, these were just the basics. This mod is already capable of so much more. If Axiom is the reference point here, we can be 100% sure that Flashback is gonna be a game-changing mod for the Minecraft community. I would definitely recommend checking it out. Link can be found down below. And that is gonna be it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, join the Discord. Thank you so much, channel members. And then I will see you in the next one. Bye bye, see you later, bye bye.